For case number 1, so we saw that the patient had 2 lacerations on the right arm, one exposing the subcutaneous tissue and the superficial fascia, while the other one was a superficial measuring 1 centimeter. And then the patient had a superficial laceration located on the right leg measuring 4 centimeters. In this case, CPT code 12032 and 12002 with a modifier 59 were appropriate. If we look at our coding guidelines under repair, so the difference between determining what is a simple repair versus intermediate versus complex is the simple repair tells us that the wound is superficial, so it only involves the epidermis or dermis or some of the subcutaneous tissue, whereas an intermediate repair, it would include repairs that go down to the fascia. So we know here that we have a simple repair and we have a intermediate repair. Because we have wounds that are of the same type, so we have 2 simple repairs, our guidelines also tell us when multiple wounds are repaired, add together the lengths of those in the same classification. So if we have 2 simples, we can add those together as long as they're in the same, as long as they're extremities. Like you couldn't add a repair of the face and then add a repair of the leg. It would have to be of the same CPT code. So it would be either the scalp, neck, axilla, external genitalia, trunk, or extremities. You could add any of those that are in the same classification system together, but then the face and other places, those have to be kept separate. So the guidelines also tell us when more than one of the classification of wounds is repaired, list the more complicated as the primary procedure and the less complicated as the secondary procedure using the modifier 59. So in that case, that's why we listed this first, and then we have this with a modifier 59. This code is explaining the superficial repairs, one of the arm and then the other of the leg, so we added those together to equal 5, and then this is showing the this code demonstrates the repair of the 3 centimeter exposing the fascia of the right arm. The second case was adjacent tissue transfer or rearrangement. So if you look at the highlighted, it's telling you that 10 centimeters of the lower back was excised through the subcutaneous fat. And then if you look down here, the defect measured 20 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and it's telling you that back cuts were made along with the wound edges, raising rotational flaps that were brought into the defect and sutured to achieve repair. So this tells you that it's a tissue transfer or rearrangement. So when we look at the guidelines for that particular part of the chapter, it tells us that the guidelines of the excision of a benign lesion or a malignant lesion are not separately reportable when you use a code from 14000 to 14302. So in that instance, you would not code the excision, which is why we don't have a code for that. But what is interesting or varies from the simple and the intermediate repair on the case studies we just looked at, when you're doing adjacent tissue transfers or rearrangement, you actually multiply the measurements. So you take 20 times 5 to get the square footage and to get the area instead of adding them. So if we look at 20 times 5, that would be 100. So we are going to look at adjacent tissue transfers for any area measuring 30 centimeter squares to 60 centimeter squares. So we would have our 1301, and then we would also have an additional 30 centimeters or part of for 14302 with an additional 14302 to cover the 100 square centimeters. So just refer to your coding guidelines when you're trying to figure out, do you code an excision in addition to the tissue transfers or rearrangements. The third case is a skin replacement surgery. So in this instance, we're taking a split thickness graft taken from the hand, and then we're putting it on the nose of what we excise. So in this instance, you want to have a code for your split thickness graft as well as your excision of the hand. So you can see here that they excised 1.1 centimeter lesion of the right side of the nose, which is where the 11642 comes from, and then the 15120 code comes from the split thickness graft that was taken from the hand that was less than a centimeter. So both of these codes, your 15120 code would be your primary because that they're doing an autograft, and then the excision would be your second code on this.